I thought maybe just first of all, I mentioned at the start that we have a few polling questions that we wanted to put to people as well, that we would like to get your views on. They're picking up essentially on the questions that we've asked in the public consultation document, particularly around direct payments, eco schemes, and one or two other areas. So what I'd like to do, just following on from Fran's presentation, is to just deal with the first couple of polling questions that we have. I think we have 3 questions on the direct payments and on targeting of direct payments, and to ask people's views on those. So Cormac, if you don't mind, my colleague Cormac again is going to put up the details now on screen. And we'd like you just to respond to the multiple choice questions that we have here. And the first one is in relation to the capping of the basic income support scheme payments. It was mentioned earlier in terms of the options that are available there for member states. There is the possibility to cap at an effective rate of €66,000, although there is also the option to cap at €100,000, or potentially for member states to go for a rate in between. So can I ask you to vote, if you would please, on either one of those 3 options? Do you think that we should cap the basic income support scheme at €66,000, at €100,000, or at a rate in between? You could vote on that now, please. And we just give it another few seconds. If you haven't already voted, you might choose which option you prefer. If you could do that right now, please, and we'll close that question in a moment. Okay, so we might just close that question there, Cormac, if you wouldn't mind. You might just indicate what the results of that quick poll were. So we see there that 62% of people have said that we should cap the basic income support scheme at €66,000. 21% want to go to €100,000, and 17% are looking at or prefer a rate in between. So thanks very much for those responses, folks. I'm going to move on to the second question that we have on the direct payments area, and that's in relation to internal convergence. So the question here again is just a couple of options in terms of expressing your preference here. Should we stop internal convergence at 85% of the national average payment entitlement value in 2026, or go to a higher percentage? So we're asking people to indicate, would you prefer to go to 85%, or to go beyond that to either 90, 95, or 100%? So again, could you indicate your preference on those 4 options now, please? So again, just give it a couple more seconds. If you haven't already voted, if you want to pick one of those options, you might do so now. Okay, so we'll close that question now, please, Cormac, and you might let us have a look at what the results were there. So 62% of people have said that we should stop at 85%, 5% say that we should go to 90, 3% say we should go to 95, and then 30% are saying we should go to 100%. So thanks again, folks, for your responses on those. And our third question on the direct payment side. And this is in relation to the redistributive payment around whether or not Ireland should go beyond the minimum requirement to redistribute 10% of direct payments from larger to smaller holdings. So as you know, this is an option available to member states in the regulations as to whether we could go to 10%, at least 10% of the direct payments envelope to be used for a redistributive payment from larger to smaller holdings. Again, could you indicate your preference there, yes or no? Do you think Ireland should go beyond that minimum requirement of 10%, or should it not go beyond 10%? So again, we give people a few seconds to indicate your preference there. If you haven't already done so, you might please do so as soon as you can. I'm going to close that question in a moment. Okay, so thanks very much for that. I'm going to close that question now, and Cormac, you might just... Okay, so in terms of the views on that, it's fairly evenly split. Yes, 48% of people feel yes, that Ireland should go beyond the 10%, and 52% have indicated no. So again, thanks very much, folks, for your responses to those 3 questions. We'll have a couple of other questions a little bit later, but again, we will take on board the findings from those polls. We did a similar poll last night, and we will do so again tomorrow, and we will take those on board again as we look to develop the measures in the strategic plan further. And I'd like to then just, if I can, finish off, you could bear with us just for a couple of minutes, just on those remaining couple of polling questions that we want to put to you. We had a couple in relation to eco schemes, and then 2 more just on more general issues within the strategic plan. So if I could ask Cormac, maybe the first question that we have on eco schemes, if we could put that up there, please. So this one is in relation to whether Ireland should go beyond the requirement of 25% of direct payments to be allocated to eco schemes. So we're asking simply for a yes or no answer from you there, if you would, please. So if you could vote now on whether Ireland should go beyond that requirement of 25%, yes or no. If you could do that quickly, we can close that question shortly. Okay, so last chance, if you want to vote on that, I'm going to close that question now. So Cormac, maybe you might just indicate there how the responses went. So 27% of people have said that yes, we should go beyond the requirement of 25, but 73% say no, that we should stick to the maximum requirement or the minimum requirement of 25%. So thanks very much for that, folks. We move on to the second question that we had on eco schemes. And that was around whether Ireland should use the flexibility in the regulation to reduce the percentage allocated to eco schemes. So this is in the context we mentioned earlier, I think, of the fact that if member states spend a high proportion of their Pillar 2 funding on environmental schemes, that they can reflect that in the allocation, the percentage allocation for eco schemes. So should Ireland use that flexibility? Yes or no? So you might indicate again now your preference on that front, please. So again, just a couple more seconds, if you would please respond to that if you haven't already. Okay, and we'll close that question now. So again, Cormac, if you could show us. Okay, so 72% of respondents felt that yes, we should use the flexibility to reduce the percentage allocated to eco schemes, and 28% have indicated no. So again, thanks very much for your responses on that. And then we'll go to 2 final questions that we have for you. First one is, I think, in relation to gender equality. We're asking, should there be specific intervention to support gender equality in farming? Again, can you give us a yes or no to that? Do you think that we should have a specific intervention, which for instance might go beyond the kind of flexibility that we might want to include across all interventions for gender participation in schemes? But should there be a specific intervention in Pillar 2 or otherwise? So you can indicate yes or no, please, again. And again, we'll give you a few more seconds just to respond to that. Okay, so we might close that question now, please, Cormac, and let's have a look at responses. So a very even split, 50-50. 50% have said yes, there should be a specific intervention to support gender equality, and 50% have responded no. So again, thank you for your responses on that. And then we have, I think, one final question. And this is a more general question in relation to biodiversity and the achievement of objectives in this area in the strategic plan. Would you be willing to create non-productive features or areas on your farm in order to improve biodiversity? So again, if you could answer yes or no on that question, please, now. Again, we'll give you a few seconds just to finish out that. Okay, and we might close that question at that point, please. And the responses, as you see there, 77% are saying yes, that they would be prepared to create non-productive areas for biodiversity, and 23% have said no. So again, thank you for your responses on those. As I mentioned earlier, we will take your responses to those polling questions, as well as all of the inputs that you've had over the course of this evening, both in terms of your written submissions and questions, but also the verbal questions that we had from people this evening. We will take those on board as we go through the process of developing the interventions further. So look, I'd like to just thank everybody who joined in this evening. Again, apologies for running slightly over time, but we did want to try and bring in as many people as possible. And apologies for some of the issues that people have had, I think, linking my microphone into this evening's proceedings. As I mentioned, we will have all of the questions put up on the department's website, and you will be able to look back on segments from these proceedings on the department's YouTube channel if you can avail of that yourselves also. And of course, you can look at the presentations on the department's website. And like I say, any questions that we didn't get to this evening or others that may come in the meantime over the course of the day tomorrow, we will try and deal with those in the course of the final webinar, which will take place also tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So thanks again, everybody, for staying with us to the conclusion right now. And again, thanks to all my colleagues, to Ted and Fran in particular for the presentations, but to everybody, all my colleagues, for the answers to the questions that you've submitted this evening. I hope you found the questions informative and useful. And I would encourage you again to please give us your feedback, please respond and submit your observations to the consultation process, either through the CAP Strategic Plan email address or in writing to the department at the address as provided in the public consultation document. So that's it for this evening, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. And for those of you who may join us tomorrow evening, we'll see you then. But otherwise, thanks again for your participation and good night.